Welcome to God's Grand Story, Session 3. You'll be in for an exciting adventure today. We'll be talking about the two books of Joshua and Judges in the Promised Land. After wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, Israel now is about to claim their inheritance called the Promised Land. Moses is dead but not forgotten. He's actually mentioned 57 times in the book's 24 chapters. And now there's a new leader, Joshua. Born as a slave in Egypt, his name means Jehovah is salvation, which is the Hebrew name for Jesus in the New Testament. 12 chapters are about conquering the land, and 12 chapters are about settling the land, where the 12 tribes would end up in setting up their homeland. Joshua was one of those 12 spies, if you'll remember, sent to check out the land. 10 came back with bad reports, but Joshua and Caleb believed by faith they could take the land. There were 30 battles to fight before they could claim this land for themselves. And finally, now they have a new land. Is God interested in land? I think so. The word land is used 87 times in the book. The prophet Ezekiel would recall this later on as he wrote in Ezekiel chapter 20 in verse 6. On that day I swore to them that I would bring them out of Egypt into a land I had searched out for them, a land flowing with milk and honey, the most beautiful of all lands. The prophet also said this, that Jerusalem is set in the center of the nations, as this land is often still in the news today, isn't it? But because of God's promise to Abraham, it belongs to Israel. Exodus says this, God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac and Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. When the people came to the Jordan River, the priest stepped in first and the water parted, just like the Red Sea did to previous generations. The first city they encountered was the city of Jericho, and there were very strange battle plans. There were 7 priests, 7 trumpets, and 7 days of marching around the city. And then with a great shout, the walls fell down, because God delights in using apparent weakness and seeming foolishness to defeat his enemies. Now, there were 3 military campaigns to conquer and settle into the new land. Joshua ended up dying at the age of 110, and now new leaders were needed, and they were called the Judges. They would lead and rule the people who were settled into the land. Now, when you think of this book, don't think about men and women in long black flowing robes. These judges were not judicial, but 12 special people who will do amazing things. They were great deliverers, superheroes. That's the story of the book of Judges too, because God doesn't abandon his children. It was a very dark period in their history, but the good news is this, he doesn't leave his people behind when they fail. God always acts to renew his people as the same cycle seems to repeat itself over and over and over in the book. The people would fall into sin and they would be placed into servitude, and then they would cry out to God in supplication. He would give them salvation, and then a period of silence or rest. That repeats itself over and over in the book. The land had been conquered, but there were still pockets of resistance. And so God raised up great leaders who rose to take on this challenge. There was Deborah, who defeated the Canaanites, Gideon, who defeated the Midianites, and Samson, who defeated the Philistines. The last verse in this often sad and tragic book sum up the basic heart problem of the people. It says in Judges 21:25, in those days, Israel had no king, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Now, how sad that is, everyone doing what was right in their own eyes. It sounds like our current time and culture, doesn't it? Some people in our culture today say there's no really right or no really things called wrong. Everything is simply relative. My truth is what is right for me, and your truth is what is right for you. There's not a moral compass without God and his word to lead and guide you into all truth. And even in the midst of all this morass and darkness, there were 2 notable exceptions to the stories. They were Ruth and Samuel. Ruth was a foreigner, a Moabite girl who married into a Jewish family, and then tragedy struck this family. Her husband died, and her brother-in-law and father-in-law as well. 3 widows all alone with no place to turn. So Ruth decides to travel back to Israel with her mother-in-law Naomi to try and find a way to simply survive. She begins to glean in the fields of a man named Boaz. You see, in biblical times, the corners of the field were to be left for the poor. And he sees her, they fall in love, and all is well. It's a beautiful love story as Ruth becomes involved now in a very special genealogy. They have a son named Obed, who has a son named Jesse, who has a son named David, who will be the greatest king to ever sit on the throne of Israel. And ultimately, Jesus Christ will also come for this godly line. Now, the story of the judges and this poor girl should be great and encouraging news for you and me. We're all a mess in some way or a form or another, and we've all tried to do things that are right in our own eyes. The question I have for you today is this: will you be the exception to the crowd? In your discussion times, think about our current culture and ask yourself this question: what makes it so attractive to follow the crowd? And then join us again next time as we continue the study of God's grand story.